name is Mark Wilson, and I'll be discussing my pilot project, Physiological and Psychological Impacts of Fabric Face Coverings, an assessment of real and perceived heat stress, cardiovascular load, and work rate. So this is a brief outline of the presentation. We'll go over background, study design, data collection and analysis, and discuss some conclusions and limitations. But overall, this is a demonstration of using wearable sensors to detect heat stress outcomes. So thermal stress is associated with a significant physical agent exposure in many occupational environments. We're homeothermic organisms, so it's critical that we maintain our body temperatures within a narrow range of conditions. We can model changes in our core body temperature based on what we are doing physically and the environment in which we are doing that activity in terms of heat or cold. The ACGIH TLV for heat stress incorporates both of these concepts in terms of metabolic load as well as environmental conditions, but additionally has a clothing adjustment factor, which accounts for what we're wearing. So the question we're asking is, do fabric face coverings impact heat strain endpoints? And we're using wearable sensors, survey instruments, and work output as response variables over a 30-minute exercise task period in elevated and ambient conditions. So people use a pedal exerciser with and without face coverings in elevated and ambient conditions, and wearable sensors give us telemetry data on core body temperature and heart rate in real time. Study subjects are surveyed using a validated perception of effort survey scale to determine differences in perceived effort for the exercise task based on the conditions, and work output was recorded from the exercise equipment based on distance traveled, calories burned in each of the experimental conditions. The heat strain data analysis was accomplished by exporting a .fit file from the Garmin smart device, which is then cracked open using open source software Golden Cheetah and then fed into R for further analysis. A physiological strain index, which was first reported in 1998, was calculated using these data. So the initial experiments used rectal temperature readings, and we are using a much less invasive methodology. So this is just a visualization that shows single subject strain index calculated over the exercise period, comparing both environmental and mass conditions. And note that we can also break that experimental period down into component tasks, so we can evaluate whether or not specific tasks are associated with increased risk. So there was no statistically significant difference associated with mask use and strain index. The relative perceived effort showed that people do perceive working harder when they're wearing face masks. So in both elevated and ambient conditions, the perception of effort is elevated, and there were no statistically significant differences in work output as it relates to calorie output or distance traveled on the pedal exerciser, regardless of mask or environmental conditions. So in summary, our physiological data showed us that we had no significant differences in strain index. Perception of effort appears to be increased with mask use, and there are no determinable differences associated with work output. Some significant limitations, though, are that 85 degrees Fahrenheit is significantly lower than real-world temperatures. The study design is just for short-term evaluation, so can't be extrapolated to an 8-hour TLV, and it was self-paced. So these are our products associated with our study. It's a foundational data set that demonstrates the concept, and we've generated an analysis pipeline which allows us to have granular data associated with individual effects for heat stress. Next steps include comparisons of where the sensors are worn on the body and having a master's student project focused on cross-sectional analysis of the